Hello everyone, I am the storyteller, and tonight I am here just to help you relax, to drift off to sleep by the sound of the waves, like the whispers of old souls. I know you have come to this video not just to hear the story, but also to find a deep, peaceful sleep. But before we begin, please gently like the video and subscribe to the channel so I can continue to tell you strange stories under the dim moonlight. Where are you from? And what time is it where you live? Just relax. Let your body relax. Put all your worries down by your pillow. Let me take you into a world of mysteries where the wind and the waves mingle, and unsolved mysteries are waiting to be told. Are you ready? Social proof. Ethan reoriented his phone and pushed his stocking cap back to reveal more of his hair before offering his audience a two-fingered peace sign. Hey, guys, what's up? Aiden raked Ethan's hand. Dude, what the hell? What's gotten into you? Sam chortled, recording both of them on his phone through a cloud of steamy breath. Scared? No, Aiden barked, glaring apprehensively into Sam's camera. I'm black, moron. Shit like this gets a brother killed. In response to Aiden's misgivings, heart, laughing, and smiling emojis floated up Aiden's image on Sam's screen. Feeling smug, Sam showed Aiden the immediate, real-time results. Aiden rolled his eyes. Whatever, fool. They ain't black. Ethan resumed a filming position with a sarcastic smile, framing the tall fence behind him in the background. Don't worry, Aiden, buddy. We'll be good and gone before anybody notices. Come on, guys. Let's go. Let's go. Sam impatiently gestured to the shadowy mansion. Pressing on, Sam directed his mobile to the naked, claw-like limbs of bare trees that lined the drive, reaching over their heads. It don't look like anybody's been here lately, since the 60s. Aiden said, jutting his hands into his pockets and hunching his shoulders. Trespassing aside, something felt eerie about the property. He felt eyes crawling all over him. Been shuttered ever since. It was foreclosed on by the bank after Thaddeus's grandson died. The house is old, protected by some kind of historical preservation law. They wanted to put a Walmart here, but couldn't. It can't be knocked down. Our resident bookworm and brown noser, ladies and gentlemen, Ethan said, capturing him and Aiden in the shot and bowing to his camera. Yeah, I read, okay? Aiden said, shoving Ethan away. This is it, peeps, Sam said, angling his phone to take a wide shot of the property. Thornbrook Manor. Ethan interrupted Sam to draw a dramatic, wide-eyed slash across his throat with his finger. The third sorcerer. Annoyed, Aiden glanced side-eyed at Sam's phone and shrugged, speaking directly to Sam's followers. It's where the geocache told us to go next. Abhorrent ground, Sam whispered ominously, reciting a phrase they found written in the cache. Flipping the phone's camera to face him, his face was uplit in the darkness. WTF? What's that even mean? Built in the 1860s outside of Seattle, the Thornbrook property was considered an architectural gem of Victorian elegance and grandeur. Dilapidated, weathered, and crumbled, its glamorous splendor, however, was lost to the past. Situated on a lush estate, the mansion boasted a commanding presence with a towering 3-story roofline, with 4 chimneys and 2 pointed spires. Its exterior facade was crafted with intricate details, replete with ornate carvings of strange and fanciful beasts, sturdy stone pillars, and delicate trimmings that lent the structure an artistic flair. Its architect was both an engineer and an artist. Its front doors were made of rich mahogany and intricately carved, yet spray painted with urban gang tags. "What is that?" Sam said. He focused his camera on a carving along the structure's foundation. It had a rounded body with taloned hands, a sloping ape-like brow, and an angry expression bearing menacing, jagged teeth, yet had stone wings like a bird. It looked tethered to the building by a black iron chain. That's a water drain," Aiden replied. "Water comes down the chain into the monkey's skull, spilling out the mouth." "Ugh," Sam groaned, zooming in on it. "That's crazy. What kind of acid were these guys on?" "Opium," Aiden clarified with a nod, thinking, then added, leaning into Sam's camera. "That or absinthe, herbs, sugar, ice, wood alcohol, big-ass psychedelic effects brought on from consuming thujone, a compound." Look! Ethan interrupted, cutting Aiden off, holding his own phone over his head as they approached a ruined reflecting pool in an overgrown garden sanctuary. Surrounded by a wrought iron fence, the pool's still black surface reflected the sky's cold, starry void. "There's the statue," Adis rumbled into Sam's camera. Friendly heart emojis raced up the side of his face. "Yeah, well, if you're curious and want to know more, DM me." "Come on, Brainiac," Sam scolded, slapping Aiden on his shoulder. Sam turned his camera's flash away from the monkey creature to send it receding into the darkness. Cautiously entering the gate, they circled the pool to step through an overgrowth of thorny black bushes with serrated, tar-colored leaves. A marble statue of a Victorian gentleman, leaning heavily on a cane, loomed over the pool's edge. Soiled by centuries of grime and vigorous splotches of mold, thorny brambles climbed its legs and torso. "Dr. Thaddeus Parlow," Aiden whispered, scanning through Wikipedia articles on his device. He passed the links on to the audience through social media. Sam zoomed in on Parlow's vandalized head. Chiseled away, it looked as if it were mauled. Chunks of marble were gouged from Parlow's face. Hundreds of shocked and gasping emojis went scrolling by. Sam zoomed back, panned, and held his phone horizontally to keep Ethan and the statue in the frame. "We've got more than 1,600 viewers, man. Play it." chided Ethan's followers. Little blue bubbles of text went floating by. Okay, I'm going to play it. Just hang on, Ethan promised his followers before turning his phone around to navigate its settings. Ethan, I don't think. Aiden's eyes trailed from his phone to the water. Sam could barely contain himself and removed his cap. He fixed his phone on Ethan. Man, this is going to be so great, reflected upon the smooth black surface of the pool. Aiden saw a sharp, vivid reflection of the Milky Way. However, looking up, ambient light from the city obscured the night sky, and it was cloudy, overcast, a typical Seattle night. Puzzled, Aiden absently asked, Ethan? Closing on Sam, Ethan held up his phone up to Sam's and pressed play to stream the video. A cheesy, AI-generated black and white image of a man with the head of an octopus appeared, followed by a grainy, scratchy recording, as if sampled from a wax cylinder. Fahanglui maglwanaf Cthulhu Ralya Wagahanagul Fetarn, recited the octopus man in a low, spectral voice. Thousands of emojis raced up Sam's display, and his follower count skyrocketed. Elated, Sam pumped the air, shouting, Yeah, Wuganagulftagan, fuckers, bring it on. Ethan mocked with a sarcastic sneer and a crude, offensive gesture into Sam's camera. Aya, Cthulhu Ftagn, to drill Ngkthikri Dagon. The recording concluded, leaving only a still, uncomfortable silence. Seeing the statue's mutilated head reflected in the pool of dreamy starlight, Aiden backed away to glance at Thaddeus, and then back at the water. The statue's angle against the surface was all wrong. How's that possible? He breathed, replaying the video on his phone. Ethan shook his mobile at Sam and shouted, That's it! The third Sorcerer's Challenge! Woo! Look! Sam exclaimed, holding out his phone. A Bitcoin balance was leaping ahead in hundreds of increments. We won, man. Where's all of that shit coming from? Ethan said, peering at Sam's phone. Sam turned the phone toward him and manipulated its settings. Dunno. Some guy in Amsterdam. Ethan squinted. Amsterdam? Where's that? Who cares? Sam exclaimed. We're gonna be rich. Sam, Aiden pleaded, pointing to the pool and gripping Sam's jacket by the sleeve. Something's wrong. Sam jerked his arm back. Bro? What the? Following Aiden's hand, Sam saw the impossibly bright, brilliant universe and the crisp reflection of Thaddeus Parlow's statue, except it wore a ghostly, bearded face. Before Sam could react, Ethan, his back to the pool, held his phone contemptuously under the statue's chin to replay the video. Sam returned his phone to a recording position. Ia, Cthulhu Vahtagn, to drill Unkthikkakri Dagon, repeated the grainy octopus man. Sam and Aiden cried out, just as a massive blue and green scaled tentacle burst from the reflecting pool, gripped Ethan's leg, then dragged him screaming into the water. The light from Ethan's submerged phone sank into the pool's depths and disappeared. Jesus fuck! Aidan shouted, throwing himself from the side of the pool against the iron fence. Sam's phone, his thousands of followers witnessing the entire event, burst into a flurry of shocked, worried, and sad emojis. From the shadows, the chained monkeys squatting along the manor's cornerstones grinned, howling in terror. Aidan grabbed Sam to bolt for the iron gate. But as they ran, the thick, thorny, weedy brambles snagged their jeans and shot out to wrap around their legs. Tripped, Sam fell, sending his phone skittering across the cobblestone surrounding the pool. "Sam!" Aidan cried, reaching back for him, only to find Sam's body ensnared in the grips of the wicked Flora, pinned against the fence's bars. Sam pleaded, extending his arm to Aidan. "Help! Help!" Tugging, the thorns ripped into Aidan's skin and tore at his legs and ankles. He could feel the lacerations, the blood saturating his jeans. Aidan struggled and tried to get closer to Sam, only to find tendrils of strangling, grinding vines cutting into Sam's throat. His eyes bulged and bled, and he choked on a protruding mouthful of black leaves. It began to rain. Scared, senseless, Aidan scrambled backward to lunge for the iron gate. Shut tight by the snaking weeds, it barely budged. Aidan glanced behind him in horror. The statue of Dr. Thaddeus Parlow remained as it was, and always had been, except its vivid, colorful reflection was a ghastly monster with a translucent nest of writhing tentacles waving from its jaw. The pool was still, unmoving, as if coated in a layer of sheer, translucent ice. The raindrops did not affect its surface. The pool was disorienting, mesmerizing, spinning. It was as if the whole of the universe lay open at Dr. Parlow's feet. "Absinthe, my ass," Aidan shouted, bracing his foot against an iron post to pull at the gate with all of his weight to rip it free of the twisting vines. Fleeing from the sanctuary, a wind bellowed from the chimneys, blowing from inside the mansion with a terrifying roar. Slipping on the mud, his heart pounding, lungs burning, Aidan ran with everything he had down the drive and scaled the fence. And without even a second glance, he sprinted away, leaving his friends forever at Thornbrook Manor. Glowing in the darkness, the video of the octopus man replayed on a loop, while a mass of emojis, check-in waves, Bitcoin balances, and DM requests flooded Sam's phone before a green tentacle reached out from the water, cupped it, and slowly slid it into the pool. Night shift. It all started one wintry night. I was waiting to cross a busy intersection on Oxford Street in London's West End. My workday had just ended, and it felt good to be out of that stuffy office. I had been feeling warm all day and hoped I wasn't coming down with a cold or flu, that regularly permeated the office environment at this time of year. Joining the throngs of people heading for the underground trains on their way home, I breathed in the crisp air that usually had a ruffled chill to every month of January, and was looking forward to getting home, switching on the telly, and putting my feet up for the evening. Whether it was the cold night air invigorating my lungs or just getting away from my desk, I felt a heightened sensation bordering on elation. Even my sense of hearing had become acute to conversations in the crowd around me. More interestingly, my stomach began to rumble like it hadn't eaten for days, but I distinctly remember eating a large portion of steak tartare for lunch, watching the animated green walking figure appear at the traffic light opposite. I stepped onto the road, but something immediately caught my attention. The people crowding around me were glowing. That is, their necks were glowing crimson. Even the ones wearing scarves appeared to be radiantly red, like they had twinkling Christmas lights wrapped around their heads. A sudden downpour of heavy, wet rain brought me back to my senses, which was fortunate for me, as I was about to kiss a strange woman's neck. This surrealistic impulse that I almost acted out panicked me. Never had I been attracted to a woman so much that I felt like blatantly accosting her on a street. I was happily married, for goodness sake, and not interested in other women. The more I searched for a reasonable explanation, the more I broke out in a cold sweat. It had alarmed me to a level of fright and flight, so I rushed headlong down the escalator stairs at Bond Street Station and jumped onto the Jubilee line to take me home. However, it was rush hour, and I found myself stuffed into a train carriage like sardines in a tin. That's when further urges tormented me. I could smell a sweet, metallic pungency all around me, and it was intoxicating, alluring, and simply irresistible. I realized I needed to control myself, because part of me argued it was immoral to feel the strange growing urges building up inside me. So I closed my eyes and chanted an unrecognizable verse in my head in an attempt to distract me from my pulsating desires. It didn't help, because the words I recited only increased a compelling hunger that needed immediate feeding. Feel the hunger deep inside, a tormenting thirst to be denied when the scent of blood is in the air. Eat here, drink there, gorge everywhere, unable to control my urges. I found myself exiting the train 2 stops early at Swiss Cottage. The rain had stopped and left a misty haze dampening the ground. Car headlights cut through the fog, creating halo effects around pedestrians crossing the road, making them look like they were glowing from head to foot. It was best that I could not see clearly. It would speed my passage home without any temptations. Taking a shortcut down an old alleyway that connected to a quicker way home, I hoped to shave several minutes off my hike. The alleyway was poorly lit, with lamp posts approximately 50 meters apart, most of them inoperative from damage done to them. As I picked up my pace, I heard a sound like someone slipping on a wet surface, then a cracking sound like a hard part of them had hit the cement pathway. A yell, followed by an expletive, told me that the person I was descending on had fallen and hurt themselves. "Are you okay, miss?" I genuinely asked on my approach. "I've cut my chin," the young woman stated. "Do you have any Kleenex tissues or paper towels?" It was then that the enticing aroma of freshly released blood wafted under my nose. Gently cupping her chin, I leaned in and "What are you doing?" the policeman demanded to know as he shined his bright flashlight on me. I was frozen in place, my eyes the only moving part darting towards the constable, then darting back at the young woman whose chin I was tightly attached to with my mouth. Logic escaped me, but flippancy did not. Quickly recalling something my mother used to say at the dinner table, I blurted it out with clenched teeth. "I would like to explain, Constable, but my mother always told me to never talk with my mouth full." Either the constable had no sense of humor, or he was tired of dealing with flippant replies to his standard police inquiries. He pulled out his truncheon and began to attack me about my head with his nightstick. One swift rip of his neck with pointy, sharp claws I didn't know existed until that moment caused him to slump to the wet ground in dead weight. Witnessing this unexpected act, the young woman screamed a blood-curdling shriek that sounded like music to my highly acute hearing. Attempting to escape, I counted to 3. Then an impressive light of foot sprint had me overtake her in seconds, where I dispatched her to the same place as that bullying policeman. Needless to say, I was horrified at my involuntary actions and needed to get home as quick as I could. I managed to cover the last mile in 2 minutes, flat. Another surprise that shocked me, because until that moment, any form of exercise I participated in, running was never my best activity. "Hello, darling," my Eloise greeted me as I unlocked the door to the safety of our welcoming abode. "How was your day?" Without a word, I unintelligibly grunted and shook my shoulders before hurrying up the stairs to the bathroom. "You okay?" Eloise called up the stairs. I was too shaken to answer. How could I explain a happening so bizarre and an anomaly so incomprehensible? It was too surreal for words, but remarkably, it had left me tingling with an unexpected surge of excitement. "Don't forget the Fortescues are coming for dinner, darling. They insisted on a weekday. Some money-making opportunity they want to present to us." Freddie Fortescue was always scheming to make an extra buck here and there, since his wealthy, stuck-up parents had practically disowned him for spending all his trust fund on get-rich-quick schemes. He had mentioned this one in passing, the last time we got together. But I told him that pyramid schemes only made money for those at the top. It was obvious that saying no to Freddie was like saying no to happiness. So he probably had his wife, Bunty, put pressure on Eloise to allow him to pitch the idea over a Wednesday night dinner tete-a-tete. The very night I seemed to be at a disadvantage in mental faculties. Damp from the evening's events, I sat on the edge of the bathtub and grabbed a towel from the rail, then proceeded to dry my face and hair of the excess blood splashed on me during my outrage. My body trembled at the memory of what I had just done, and a soft, painful cry escaped my lungs. Moments later, the bathroom door swung open, and Eloise rushed in, a look of worried concern on her face. "What's wrong, darling? Are you okay?" "I don't know where to start," I mumbled. "It's okay," Eloise softly reassured me. "Calm yourself." Tears filled my dry eyes. Something horrific had happened to me. I felt like my insides were remapping my DNA. "I feel like my body is changing, Elle. Like I'm a teenager again, going through puberty. It's such a strange feeling, bordering on an energizing sensation of euphoria. I'm sweating, but I don't feel hot." Gently caressing my chin until our eyes locked in comforting gazes, Elle pressed the back of her other hand against my forehead. "You do feel rather on the cold side, darling. I have done something horrible, Elle. Come on," Eloise requested. "A nice glass of red downstairs will set you to rights. You can tell me all about it after you change clothes." Ushering me from behind, Eloise nudged me from the bathroom. I felt both confused and elated at the same time. But how would I be able to explain it to Elle? Snapping me out of my inward thoughts, Elle held up the cravat she wanted me to wear. Then produced the most exquisite red velvet jacket while helping me on with it. It was a tad kitsch, but she has always loved seeing me dressed up in 1970s Hugh Hefner-styled clothing. She said seeing me in a velour way caused her to purr like a kitten, and that it always added a little excitement to the evening. Besides, the Fortescue's sense of fashion always seemed to tease at the edge of tackiness. It would be rude not to indulge our guests on this dark, wet, and atmospheric night. No sooner had Elle dressed me, Freddie and Bunty were ringing our doorbell. As I opened the door to let them in, I decided to put on a brave face and try to act normal. This was helped by Freddie and Bunty gliding into the hallway, dressed in a similar 70s revival fashion. Good company for my velvet jacket. Freddie's wide lapel suit with platform shoes made him look taller than his small stature. But Bunty looked deliciously attractive in a rainbow-striped halter top and brown flared pants. Luckily for her, the faux fox fur coat she wore as she entered our home had kept her cozy and warm in the outside fog of the evening. It was a much-needed distraction from my earlier experience, so I told myself to just get through dinner, then confess all to my loving Eloise. Throughout the evening, conversation from our guests had been jovial, but I remained slightly reserved, still trying to come to grips with my sudden change of character. It wasn't too noticeable, as Freddie took center stage and entertained us with quips and jokes of an era gone by. You know, the borderline racist and sexist one-liners that matched his dress code. Bunty shyly giggled at Freddie's off-color humor, but managed to correct him when he went too far. Eloise had seated me next to Bunty, and opposite us, she sat next to Freddie. Soup was the starter. However, my appetite had escaped me, so I didn't partake in eating any of it. Trying to suppress flashbacks of the evening's earlier slaughter, coupled with my adrenaline level still high, acted as a natural hunger suppressant. Eloise noticed my introverted behavior and flashed a concerned look at me across the dining table, but I smiled and nodded that I was okay. During the main meal, Eloise served up some medium-rare fried steaks with pommes frites that, although smelled enticing, I just played with mine until I became bored. So, topping up everyone's wine glass, I settled into listening to Freddie open his sales pitch on why we should attend his pyramid parties. He explained how getting in early guaranteed us a big payday, and that we could repeat the process multiple times. Illegal as his idea was, it was tempting nonetheless. I was on the verge of agreeing when all my senses suddenly heightened beyond containment. It was as if I could hear Bunty's pulse beating like a drum struck methodically in cadent rhythm. Chillingly, it sent me into a form of stalking mode, instantly attracting my devoted attention. Beguiling me with its seducing sound, I soon realized it was the incantation of Bunty's blood being pumped through her soft veins. Studying her pulsating neck closely, I was immediately overcome with the oddest desire to kiss her. So I leaned in toward her and, "Darling," Eloise abruptly demanded my attention. "Where are your manners? We should always feed the guests first." I turned my head sideways to respond to Elle, and was bemused at the expression on Freddie's face. A look of sheer shock and horror stretched across his entire expression. As I removed my face from snuggling into Bunty's neck, she unexpectedly fell face down into her caramel flan that Eloise had served for dessert, staining it blood red with every pumping beat of her open jugular vein. I was flabbergasted at the sight before me, but before I could cry in shock, and more importantly, before Freddie could run screaming from the house, Eloise quickly bit down onto his large-collared, silk-shirted neck, draining him of a large amount of life-giving blood. Not to be upstaged, he too imitated Bunty's reaction and slumped with his nose buried in his dessert. "Before you freak out, Eloise halted my panic. "We need to talk." My gut reaction was to scream. However, the satisfying sensation that coursed through every fiber of my body sat me relaxed back into the comfort of my chair. Everything became clearer. Was to be the new normal, my newly formed ideology argued. What surprised me the most was my Eloise. It was obvious that she was like me, but had been so for a tad bit longer than I. It was also apparent that she was the one responsible for my predicament. "When did you?" I sincerely inquired. "Sunday night, darling," she replied, cutting me off in mid-question. "Why?" "I'm so sorry, my love. I'm selfish, and I couldn't bear the thought of living through eternity without you." Her candor was admirable, and her expression of love for me was so sweet that I immediately forgave her. She did it out of love, I reasoned, with the lucidity of a madman. However, there was still one question remaining to be answered. "Elle, who turned you?" "Nigel, at the company Christmas party. The one where partners weren't invited?" "Obviously for a reason, darling. The world needs more vampires, apparently. It's all the rage." Somehow, I had missed that memo at my own place of business. Elle's answer certainly explained the increasing numbers of sickie days my colleagues took before never returning to work. It also explained my wife's sudden rush to buy thick black velvet curtains that she kept drawn during daylight hours. I simply thought blocking out the intermittent English sunshine helped ease her migraines. What created a conundrum is that she chose to convert me without any prior discussion, but I suppose that would have been a difficult topic to broach. "Darling, I have some good news and some bad news. The good news is that I will live forever. The bad news is you won't, so I need to bite your neck and drain your blood." I may have run for the hills if she had explained it in that manner. However, the way I felt after ripping through Bountiful Bunty's porcelain flesh was too intoxicating to argue with any rational thought. I was now a night crawler, a citizen of the undead. My world had changed. It was up to me to live with it and learn to sleep by day, because from here on out, I was going to have to work the night shift. Still trying to process events, I didn't hear the front door being broken in, the heavy sets of footsteps piling into the hallway, and the police helicopter hovering above our roof, shining its blinding searchlight beam through the open curtains. I must have been recognized on my mad dash home at the speed of a fast-moving city car, angry shouts ordering the two of us to lay on the floor face down, accompanied guns pointing directly at us. Eloise remained calm, but I was still processing the intrusion and trying like an idiot to protest at the 8 heavily armed members of the CVS, the counter-vampire squad. "Gentlemen," I began, Couldn't this wait until after dinner? We still haven't opened the port. An over-aggressive policeman, frustrated by my words, hit me in the head with the butt of his assault rifle, but it had no sensory impact on me. He might as well have just blown air in my face. He obviously had not seen what I had done to the last policeman that attacked me. "Darling," Eloise softly called, "it's time." "Time for what, Elle?" "Time for us to find somewhere else to live." In a speedy blur, resembling life at fast-forward viewing, Eloise swiftly overpowered every member of the vampire squad, beheading each one of them before they could react. Once again, I was shocked at the carnage, but in parallel, oh so proud and in awe of my wonderful Elle. In time, I would most likely possess those unworldly skills. But for now, I remained in a state of marvel at her ability to nullify an overwhelming force that had threatened to overpower us. "Bravo, Elle," I congratulated her, my compassion for the dead non-existent and my grasp of reality rapidly slipping from any semblance of sanity. Quickly grabbing our coats, Elle pulled me by the hand and led me down the hallway and through our broken front door, turning to take a final look at the home we had to immediately vacate. The whir of the hovering helicopter above our house reminded us that time was of the essence. Putting a loving arm around my beloved Elle, I flipped a defiant, juvenile-inspired middle finger up at the pilot, then guided Elle out into the foggy night. "What now, Jeremy?" Elle sentimentally asked as we fled at top speed to avoid the chopper's searchlight. "Let's eat first," I replied. "I'm starving." Straitjacket. Chrissy. Yates pocketed the last of her equipment and squinted her eyes, the way a predator is in on its prey. "Oh, come on," she thought, her nervous gaze darting between her watch and the sanatorium door. Impatient, she stood herself at the entrance, which was one of corrugated iron. It was an almost baleful presence, and one that only chose to admit the most intrepid of investigators. "Beware ye who enter." Paranormal investigation was no hobby of Chrissy's. It wasn't something she did for one Friday evening's amusement. It was her life, much to the annoyance of her fiancé, Todd. "Why can't you do something normal?" he pleaded. "Like book club?" Chrissy scoffed at that, quietly terrified at how suburban Todd was becoming. She found it baffling how her and Todd, once throwing darts at a world map to see where they would travel, could now only sight a scoot around in the Kroger parking lot as the most adventurous thing they had done together. They were now completely different on a cellular level. Fundamentally, Chrissy was a rebel. She was a free spirit, a girl with twigs and berries in her hair, a girl who cried whenever you killed a ladybug by accident. But here, she had lost her iridescent shell and become a scrawny ribbon of beige, a sculpture of suburbia-shaped pulp. She had failed, resolutely, to rebel in the big ways, which is why she found herself always trying to hold her own in the small ways. "You're late," Chrissy spat at her soon-to-be husband, tapping her watch. "Good evening to you too, Chris." Todd pecked Chrissy on the cheek. Here, they looked comically incongruous. Chrissy, forever undertaking these new challenges with relish, and Todd breathless after the hour-long walk from their apartment. "Let's just get this over with, shall we?" said Todd, with a smirk on his face. "Where's Milo? Didn't you get his message? He can't come." "What is that grin for? You know how much this means to me, Todd." "I know," Todd reassured her, taking her hand. "I know." Never had swapping opinions about a chick lit with a group of soccer moms over a bottle of cheap sorority rosé looked so frightening to Chrissy. "Good," she announced loudly, betraying a sudden strength of character beneath her sallow skin. "Let's do this." Almost immediately, Chrissy produced a flashlight, its crisp, cylindrical beam throwing sharp shafts of light over the dripping gloom, and a room that was now a rich repository of the past. A place that was once a refuge for any woman, its intake striding anyone from a widow with night terrors to a sexual deviant denouncing her family's Catholic faith. Chrissy read that at its peak, the sanatorium was home to up to 200 people. It was a number Chrissy almost found comforting. These women, united in their combined will to escape, now seemed more powerful than ever. "Are you sure we should be doing this, Chrissy?" asked Todd, trailing his fiancée. "What do you mean?" "We can do what we want." "No, but I mean, should you be doing this?" "I don't want to talk about that now." "I know, but..." "Shh! What was that?" The only sounds available to their naked ears were the scratch of their footfalls against the frost-crusted twigs and the steady plip of water, the hallmarks of any B-movie. The noise Chrissy managed to hear presented itself again, something anyone else would put down to the movement of a rat. "Did you hear that?" When Todd shook his head, Chrissy looked back and, aided by the dwindling light of her pathetic torch, saw a battery of glazed leporine eyes. "Oh my God, Milo!" Chrissy exhales, her breath white with frost. "What are you doing here? I thought I'd make a last-minute appearance." Milo, Todd's longest and closest friend, said, "Keep you on your toes. Did you know about this?" Chrissy spat to Todd, her cheeks surrendering any of their remaining color. "Why are we here again?" Milo asked, comically unprepared, wearing just a shirt and jeans. Todd shrugged his shoulders. "Ask her. She wanted to come here. She must have told you a reason." "There is no reason, Milo. You know this." "Actually, there is a reason," Chrissy corrects Todd. "If you must know, my mother was here." "Your mother?" "Chrissy." "What?" Todd asked, confused. "You heard me. Just before the place shut down, she was admitted here." "You never told me." "I don't think you ever asked, Todd." Shall we move on, more determined than she had ever been? Chrissy stalked deeper into the darkness. "So why was your mother here?" Milo asked, closely following Chrissy. "Milo!" "No, it's fine, Todd," replied Chrissy, grateful for the question. "I don't know exactly how she came to be here. She didn't tell me. But when her dad died, her mom married again, and he started sexually assaulting her, raping her." "Oh, shit. Yeah. And if that wasn't enough, she was abused by her own husband, my dad. But no one believed her. That would drive anyone into the loony bin. Chris, do you really think this is a good idea? Maybe we should go home," Todd advised. "No, Todd. If you want to go home, that's fine. I'm staying." Chrissy's determination seemed almost thunderous in this confined space. It was a quality she inherited from her mother, a woman who the naysayers tried to force her into the identikit mold of the abused woman you might expect to see plastered on your TV screens and newspapers, blue and bloody beside the dishwasher. Instead, she was a born-again freedom fighter who learned her life lessons the hard way, like an up yours to a traditional fable. It was no wonder that Chrissy had such a difficult childhood. But she, much like her mother, refused to be packaged as a woman, fighting on the behalf of anyone who had ever been brutalized, anyone worn threadbare by abuse, anyone still haunted by the nightmares. Sharp, serrated pinpricks of terror, a spider-webbed mirror, a shard of glass, a calloused palm, the girl who used to throw bricks at street lamps and through store windows for nothing but her own amusement, who used to grieve as easily with laxatives as with a bottle of wine, and who used to hide the ladder of cuts on her arm, was no longer that little girl. Chrissy wasn't scared anymore. She had conquered her fear. She wanted to talk about her past, even if Todd didn't want her to. Todd liked to sugarcoat things and cower behind the happy illusion that things were better than they actually were. He wouldn't allow them to tackle issues head-on. Say one of their golfing friends, clad in one of those Argyle sweaters, mid-slurp of Long Island iced tea, mid-bite of a crustless cucumber sandwich, brought it up. Todd would swat it away and insist that it was only temporary. If Chrissy wanted to talk about something as mundane as what they were having for dinner, that would be fine. But if she wanted to talk about how she came to be in a psychiatric hospital when she should have been spending her gap year in Phuket like any other student, then that would, of course, be off limits, which was why she had to come here, to this very hospital. "Oh my God, what is this place?" Milo asked, weirdly curious. "This," Chrissy replied, happy to answer, "was where they did the whole electroshock therapy thing." Milo shared a confused look with Todd. "How do you know that?" Chrissy smiled wryly. "I just do." Chrissy couldn't help imagining her mother in this room, putting her legs in stirrups and placing herself at the mercy of a masochistic doctor. "We are going to scour it out of you," he would spit, forcing a wet sponge between her lips. He would have her return a vegetable, someone who squeezes a nurse's hand to tell them you're still alive, someone who slurps liquidized food through a straw and shits in a bucket. With renewed determination, Chrissy crouched down to the floor, where it was dark and slippery, strewn with machine parts and moldy baby clothes. She reached into her backpack and produced a tumbler, a pen, and a piece of paper. "What are you doing?" Todd asked, his eyes following his partner's movements. "I wasn't planning on doing it here," Chrissy said, frustrated. "But if you would just work with me, then maybe we could—" "No," Todd objected immediately. "If you're doing what I think you're doing, then I'm out." "Oh, come on, Todd." Milo was surprisingly game. "Don't be such a buzzkill. Last time I did it," Chrissy resumed, "I could hear my mother's screams. You know, I could really talk to her." Todd shook his head defiantly. "No, I'm not doing this." Chrissy switches off her torch and holds aloft a pack of candles before striking a match and lighting them. The feeble flames curl and sway and lick the dusty air. "Are we ready?" Chrissy asked, bathed in an ombre of red and black. Milo gestured to Todd to sit down. Finally, Todd acquiesced, taking them both by the hand so Chrissy could commence. "Great. Thanks, Todd. That means a lot." Chrissy began by setting an upturned tumbler on the paper, before reaching into her jean pocket for the yellowed, crumpled remains of a photo of her mother and her crooked smile. A smile that, once upon a time, seemed to generate its own light, one that lit up everything around her. "Don't break the circle," Chrissy instructed the two men. "Whatever you do, do not break the circle." "Okay," Milo said, his voice trembling slightly. "Don't worry," Chrissy said warmly, forcing a note of levity, noticing that his voice had ascended an octave. "That's exactly what I was like when I first tried it." Todd and Milo looked at one another once again, almost in awe at Chrissy's newfound pastime. "Mom," Chrissy said, looking upwards, as though to some external force. "If the answer is yes, please slide the glass to the right. And if the answer is no, please slide the glass to the left. Okay? Mom, are you with us?" All eyes swiveled to the glass. Chrissy pursed her lips in nervous anticipation before looking up again, only a few moments later, to see the glass moving in Todd's direction to the right, its rim scraping across the floor. "Hiya, Mom." "Oh my God." Milo tried to retract his hand. "How did you—" "Shh." The glass moved back to the center. "Mom, I'm gonna ask you some questions, all right? How are you doing this?" Milo demanded. Todd silenced him with the whites of his eyes. "Mom?" Chrissy called out, trying to re-establish the connection. "Mom, are you okay?" The tumbler moved to the right again. Chrissy smiled. Milo turned to Todd, who he thought would be on his side at this point, given this was his first time as well. But he too was riveted to his spot. "Joe, Mom, if you're still there, could you please write something for us?" On this pen and paper. Chrissy indicated the pen and paper in the center. The glass stirred yet again. Ting, ting. That's amazing, Mom. What would you like to tell us? The ballpoint was picked up and floated in mid-air before starting to glide across the page, leaving in its wake a long and inky sentence. Tell them what they did to me, Chrissy. Tell them what they did. As a draft, wispy as a trail of jet exhaust, wafted across the room, all withering eyes, in unconscious tandem, moved in Chrissy's direction. The glass shattered. The whole room descended into a sudden flurry of accusations, and finally, the circle broke apart. Jesus Christ, Milo shouted, mopping his forehead with the back of his hand, trying to make sense of everything. What just... I don't know, Todd answers, looking to Chrissy. I don't know. Chrissy's lips folded into a smile. I told you it worked. No. Milo stood back, his eyes wide with fear. That is some nasty voodoo shit. Come on, Todd. She's crazy. Crazy? Chrissy said, feeling the cold fury hoard in her chest. You think I'm crazy? Seeking the exit, Milo ran headlong into the darkness, the scrape of his footfalls dissolving with his screams. He won't get very far without a flashlight, Chrissy remarked. He's right, Todd said, jerking to his feet. You are crazy. What? I don't know what's happened to you in these past few days, and I don't really care. But this has got to stop, Chris. It's this obsession. It's not normal. You don't think I'm normal? Do you understand what I'm saying? Todd screamed, his throat taut with desperation. I mean, do you really understand what I'm saying? This, he continued, grabbing her jaw, spittle landing on his cheek as he enunciated each word, is not normal. Go then. I don't need you anymore. My mom's here. Oh, for fuck's sake. Your mother isn't here. Chrissy so desperately wanted to prove her fiancé wrong. Oh, really? Chrissy could only sit and watch as the man she loved doubled back and wailed in pain, falling to the ground with a terrific thud. He reached for his foot, as though to favor his leg, much like a wounded animal. What the fuck? Todd tweaked his trouser leg to reveal a 3-pronged scratch on the back of his leg. Did that hurt? She asked, savoring this moment. Something changed in Todd's expression. His surroundings suddenly felt hazy and distant, as though on the other side of a glass wall. You're insane, Chrissy, he said, struggling to his feet, running for the exit. You're insane. This was Chrissy's cue to look back in her bag and find her EMF meter, holding it out in front of her. It made a distinct clicking noise, its crackle like the one that heralded the beginning of a Western or a grainy VHS tape. Mom, he's gone, Chrissy said, checking Todd had definitely left. It's just us now, I promise you. Just us. Chrissy sank to the ground and tried to keep an absolute silence so that all could be heard was the solitary metronome of her EMF meter. "I'm here now, Mom. I'm here." Click, click, click. The care and feeding of monsters. Via Sol looked around the mansion with distaste. She didn't like being here, and she certainly didn't like what she had heard about the monster who used to live here. Not that she put much credence in the old tales that some of the more senior members of the Lollipop Guild talked about. Those wizened relics of the past had many tales to tell. All the stories outrageous, and all the events sounding just a little too fantastic to believe. Via poked around the foyer and the living area, marveling at the size of the place and grimacing at the thick coat of grime and dust that covered every surface. She had drawn back every curtain on the ground floor, yet the area remained dark and suffocating. Curious, the high, vaulted ceilings spiraled upwards, seemingly without end, but the claustrophobic feeling stayed. The ancient wood creaked and groaned with every step she took, voicing its complaint in sonorous, funereal tones. She wanted to leave right now, but she had a prospective client. This place had been on the books for over 100 years, and getting it sold would be a major coup for her. She had visions of a corner office and a hefty bonus. The realtor overcame her fears and waited. But she waited outside, a wicked witch indeed. What ridiculous tripe! Franklin Baumgartner looked around the mansion. Via thought his eyes looked dead, but, she reasoned, that could be the effect of the poor light in the mansion. His assistant, a Miss Holcomb, also had a lifeless look about her. Their size bothered Via. The man towered over everyone in the land, standing almost 6 feet tall. The woman was a giant as well. Their attire was odd, and their actions startling. "Miss Holcomb, take some notes," Baumgartner snapped. Miss Holcomb dutifully took out a notepad and readied herself for the onslaught to come. Replace the windows, double-paned, insulated with argon gas. Make that triple-paned, American-made. Always buy American-made, Miss Holcomb. None of that Chinese shit. Get some people in here to reinforce the floorboards. They squeak like a bitchy wife. Cleaning crew. Make that cruise. American cruise? Miss Holcomb pushed her glasses back on her face and peered up at her boss. "No, hire the illegals that come over here. They'll work cheap and do a good job. Remember, Miss Holcomb, buy American, hire foreign." "Got it, sir," Miss Holcomb said. She wrote rapidly and then paused, waiting for more. "Contact Kate Mueller in Chicago. Have her come in and furnish this place. Spare no expense. It's a fucking mausoleum right now. Get Halliburton to give me a call. I hear wolves out there. He's good at killing things. Gardeners, of course. Lots of them. The land has gone to hell. Oh, and I saw some beehives out there. Find me a beekeeper. If the bees aren't producing honey, we'll exterminate 'em. The roof needs to be checked. Baumgartner went on like this for some time. Miss Holcomb wrote furiously, nodding occasionally, and staying 6 feet behind her employer. Via Saul didn't show it, but she was confused and alarmed. She had never heard of the places mentioned. America, Canada, Chicago. The man also used language that was unfamiliar to her, especially the word beginning with a foo sound. Or bitchy, maybe it's their way of saying itchy. And maybe the foo word is a term of endearment. Via was snapped out of her reverie by Baumgartner's stentorian voice. "Miss Soul? Hey, you still with us?" Via looked up and almost stood at attention. "Of course, yes. So, the price? You have it listed as 133 lollipops. That must be a typo." Baumgartner frowned at her. He didn't approve of sloppy work. "No, sir, that's the price. But we can negotiate." "Lollipops?" "Yes, sir. I'm assuming that you can pay in lollipops." "Hell no, missy. We use good old American dollars. The best currency in the world, I'll have you know." "Lollipops? What the hell kind of lollipop do you require? Are they lined with gold?" Well, no. That is, they're just lollipops." Baumgartner looked at his assistant impassively. He blinked and shook his head. Miss Holcomb waited patiently for something to write down. "Show me," Baumgartner said. Via nodded, confused as to why someone needed to see what was widely considered the coin of the realm. She went outside to her horse and buggy, retrieving a couple of lollipops. She went back inside the mansion, not easy in her mind. Baumgartner stared at them for some time. He inspected them closely, twirled them in his fingers, and even sniffed them. He handed one to Miss Holcomb, who mimicked her boss's actions. "Am I to understand that these lollipops are made with sugar?" "Nothing else. Just sugar and some natural coloring, I think." "I'm not sure. The Lollipop Guild makes them, and they guard their secrets carefully." Baumgartner nodded. Although confused by the method of payment, he didn't hesitate to take advantage of the situation. "What'll you take for these lollipops? Cash? Goods?" Baumgartner eyed Via closely, noting her body language. He was successful in part because of his ability to read people. "Well, I was going to purchase some new clothes after work. Food for the winter. Grain for the horse," Via said. She was nervous. The conversation about money bothered her. No one talked about money here. No one at all. Baumgartner considered what the realtor said. He whispered to his assistant. She nodded lightly and wrote something down on her notepad. "Tell you what, Miss Soul, I'll bring you a new horse when I come back, if you give me one of these." Via gasped. A new horse would normally cost 7 lollipops. She tried to keep her composure. The man is an idiot. "However, I could use a new horse. Poor old Rusty is getting old. And maybe I could get a little more out of this dolt." A new horse is acceptable, but I think I'd want a little more. Maybe throw in 100 kilos of grain for the new horse. Baumgartner accepted quickly. The woman's a dolt, selling this place for 133 lollipops, and all she wants is a new horse and some feed. Jesus, this is gonna be easy. We'll be back next week. Have the papers ready to sign. I'll have the, payment in full, Baumgartner said. He didn't even try to haggle over the price. He was starting to love this exchange rate. Baumgartner was as good as his word. He paid for the mansion and bought Via a new horse, along with supplying her with an impressive amount of grain for the horse. Still, Via was disturbed. The stranger found his way to her homeland. There were tales about a farm girl who had done this, but that was nothing more than a story that the old ones told. Baumgartner was indeed from another land, Kansas. His Aunt Elle had given him what was left of the family farm, and he sold it quickly, at a ridiculously low price. His aunt was dead. The farm was not a moneymaker, and he hated farming. The only thing he kept was a pair of silver slippers, for they entranced him. In the light, they turned into a fiery, ruby-red color. Aunt Elle also told him that he could transport himself to a magical land by wearing the slippers and wishing himself to this nebulous place. The slippers were far too small to wear, and he didn't believe such nonsense anyway. One night, after drinking in excess, a particularly cheap and poor quality of a Chianti, he tried it. Frank found himself in the middle of a poppy field, staring at a city that seemed entirely made of green crystals. He took one of the crystals and closed his eyes again, wishing himself back home. Emeralds. The green crystals were emeralds. He made several trips like this and became rich. He also discovered streets made of gold bricks. He helped himself to plenty of these as well. When he returned, he found that the gold bricks and the emeralds had been replaced. Frank had no qualms about taking more emeralds and more gold from this place. None at all. Frank Baumgartner had found Oz. The inhabitants of the land that Baumgartner invaded were becoming unhappy with their new neighbor. He had a landing strip built for his private jet. The people thought it was a monstrous steel dragon and fled every time it landed or departed. The same emotions arose when Baumgartner drove his vehicle. To them, it was nothing more than an iron terror roaming through their land. Queen Ozma demanded that the stranger leave. He refused. She had no recourse to his refusal. No one had ever defied the queen before, so she was at a loss as to what to do. They had no police force, for there was no crime. They had no standing army, for they had no enemies. Until now, Baumgartner paid well in lollipops. This became a problem. A huge problem. The economy was turned upside down and inside out. Munchkins and Winkies, with newfound wealth, invaded Emerald City and bought up desirable plots of land and built houses. Baumgartner built several yellow-bricked roads that led to Emerald City, and the flood of country people to the city was unsustainable. The new royalty had been, just a short time before, farmers and craftsmen. The Lollipop Guild had been decimated by the influx of lollipops from Baumgartner. Inflation ran rampant. And then a recession hit. Everyone felt its effects, and the people of all 4 quadrants of the land found themselves struggling to survive. Baumgartner didn't care. He was rich in America, but here he was a god. He controlled the lands, the supply chains, the very fabric of life. Poverty became the new normal. "We have to do something!" Vaya slammed her fist on the table. The Munchkins looked at her with surprise and consternation. She had never been so demonstrative. Via Sol had always been the epitome of grace and charm. Goru stood up, though it made little difference in his height relative to everyone else. He was short, even for a Munchkin, but he commanded respect. The eldest member of the Lollipop Guild had been Goru for the past 70 years, and his word meant something. "I have a solution, but you aren't going to like it," he said. A quietness overtook the room. If Gora said that it would be displeasing, then it would be very displeasing. The council braced itself. Goru outlined his plan. Everyone was horrified, but they agreed to it. Effie sensed the Munchkin well before he came into sight. She sniffed the air and smelled fear, desperation, sadness. Goru stopped short when he saw Effie. It had been 20 years since she had been banished to the edge of Munchkin land. Although he had voted against the banishment, he still felt a thrill of fear. Effie was dangerous. All her kind were dangerous. What brings the great and powerful Gora to my humble shack? Effie picked up a snake and stroked it gently before putting it back on the ground and giving it a shove with her toe. The snake slithered off into the underbrush, looking for a meal. A stranger from the outer lands. A bad person, Effie. Very bad. "We need your help," Goro said, looking down. He was afraid to meet Effie's eyes. "I have no quarrel with you, Gora. You didn't vote against me when I was banished. But why should I help? I was exiled because of my grandmother." Goro nodded. She was right. She had no reason to help. "But I will," Effie said softly, "because the stranger has something of mine." Goro looked at her, surprised. "You know about the stranger. I may be restricted to the edge of the desert, but I hear things," she said. "Because the animals tell me." Goro believed her. Effie's grandmother understood the animals. I'll come to the council next week, when it's over. I'll want something in return, though. Goru nodded. He was empowered to agree to almost anything. What? Effie looked at Gora and smiled. It was a beautiful smile, so unlike her grandmother's wicked leer. My grandmother's old house. Goru expected this. He nodded, and then he left as quickly as possible. The edge of the desert frightened him, and Effie frightened him most of all. He thought of a saying he had heard long ago, "Needs must when the devil drives." He would wonder, years later, who the devil really was. Effie flew above the trees on her umbrella, scanning the countryside. She knew the area well, for she had been raised in Winky country. Her old house looked different, modern and bright. She hated it. A portly man came outside and looked around, hands on hips. Effie's tremendous sight allowed her to see him clearly. He had a mug look on his face. Odd clothes covered his portly frame, and he was smoking a cigar. Effie banked sharply and flew toward the man. He finally spotted her and stared at her in surprise and fear. She saw his eyes widen. He screamed just as her umbrella penetrated his heart. The umbrella settled gently on the ground as Effie stepped off. She strode to the man and took the briefcase. She had what she wanted. She had what belonged to her. "We have to do something," Vaya said miserably. She didn't slam her hand on the table, as she had done all those years ago. But the tone of her voice revealed her desperation. Goru and the rest of the council agreed. Effie had been a hero 20 years ago when she killed the giant stranger and everyone else in her grandmother's old house. The land was freed from the bonds of American capitalism and its monstrous ways. Now, however, she was as her grandmother had been, wicked and controlling. The flying monkeys were back, as were the giant white wolves and the huge black bees. They had gotten so used to smallish wolves and gentle honeybees that the new, more dangerous versions were even more frightening than ever. What can we do? We made a deal, and she took advantage. Goru talked quietly, as usual, but his voice was tinged with defeat. He saw no way out. "It's like the old days," he continued, "when her grandmother ruled Winky Land. But worse. Effie seems to have a vendetta against us. So, we're sunk. Back to the way things were in the old days, and no stupid farm girl to bail us out," another member said. "Where did she come from? Kansas? Where the hell is that?" Vaya was willing to travel past the deserts if need be. "Somewhere over the rainbows, Vaya. Somewhere we can't reach." Effie sat in her darkened mansion and smiled, stroking the fur of a wolf and listening to the angry buzzing of the black bees flitting about her abode. She had reclaimed her family power. The witch still remembered the day her mother died. She had been behind a curtain when the incident occurred. watching the events unfold. When the strange girl doused her mother with water, she gasped. Her mother melted in front of her eyes. Effie had never seen such a gruesome sight in her life. But that wasn't the end of the bad news. She had been banished to the edge of the desert, though the council that banished her knew full well that she would, in all probability, die from this. The only member to vote in her favor was Gora. Effie, though, had been taught how to survive by her mother. She flourished. Her hate grew. And then another stranger showed up, and with the magical slippers, her mother's slippers, and the last remaining source of all witchy power, just a pair of shoes, silver. But they fit her feet perfectly, almost like they were made for her. Now that she was the only living witch in Oz, she could rule all the lands, not just Winky Land. There was a new ruler of the land, and she wasn't about to forget what the inhabitants had done to her or her mother. Effie scanned the skies for flying houses. It wouldn't do to neglect the lessons from the past. She grabbed her umbrella and took off across the land, flying low and fast, observing her domain. Effie was on her way to Emerald City to depose the queen. She has a date with the point of my umbrella today. I look forward to the smell of royal blood spilled on the streets of Emerald City. My only regret is that she can't melt like my mother did. Effie flew on over poppy fields and verdant landscape. Evil had returned to Oz. The monster they all feared was a woman with silver slippers on her feet and hate in her heart. The queen has an expiration date. Evil has no such restriction.